Shalom everyone, it's Friday again, and this time it's Parashat Devarim, the very first parasha of the book of Devarim, the fifth book of the books of Moses of the Chumash. Sefer Devarim, the whole book, and especially starting with our parasha, is a speech that Moshe Rabbeinu gave to the Jewish people. A speech that is there to invigorate them, to encourage them, like a prep speech in advance of them entering into the land of Israel. Moshe Rabbeinu already knows that he himself is not going in. So in many ways, this is Moshe Rabbeinu's, you could say it's his final swan song. It is his legacy that he is wanting to give to the Jewish people. Take these ideas with you. Take this as the creed of the Jewish people that will give you strength. And indeed, we'll see the very end of the book, Ha'azinu, he literally says, this song, this Kitvu Lachem et Hashira Azot, write down the Torah, the song, Ha'azinu, it will keep you focused, it will keep you on the line. One of the beautiful things about Moshe Rabbeinu's speech is that it's also a summing up of the story of the Jewish people. And one of the things that appears in our parasha is a small little episode that Moshe Rabbeinu experienced, which we see it earlier in the Chumash in Parashat Yitro. Although this time he doesn't mention it as much. We see that when the Jewish people are about to go into the land of Israel, they're ready to head in, he says, ראה נתתי לפניכם את הארץ, בואו שו את הארץ, אשר נשבע אדוני לאבותיכם, לאברהם, ליצחק וליעקב, לתת להם ולזרעם אחריהם. This is God speaking through Moshe's mouth, saying, it's time to get up and to go and conquer the land. But, Moshe Rabbeinu says, already from the beginning, ואומר לכם בעת ההיא לאמור, from the very first stage, I said, לא אוכל לבדי שאת אתכם. I can't take on the whole Jewish nation and lead all of you together. Baruch Hashem, God has made you an immense multitude of people. May you grow and be an amazing big nation. Think about it. The Jewish people went down to Egypt, 70 souls, maybe with extended family, coming out hundreds of thousands. This is an immense people. How is Moshe Rabbeinu supposed to take all of them on? How is a leader supposed to deal with all of the politics of a nation? Indeed, notice, tochechem, your annoyance, u'masaichem, and your burden, and verivchem, and your arguments. How isn't a Jewish politician supposed to be a politician of Jews? How are we supposed to deal with all of the argumentative and disagreeableness that sometimes comes forth in communal politics? Indeed, notice the word used here is eicha, and Chazal already touched on this. And when the Shliach Tzibur, or the Baal Korah will read in Shul, Be'ezrat Hashem, on Shabbat morning, he will read Eicha with the song, with the tune of the book of Eicha that we were going to read this Tisha B'Av. Eicha, Isa levadi, tochachem asechem verivchem. How? Eicha is how the heck, to be precise. How am I supposed to do this? This is the same Eicha which appears in Megillat Eicha. Eicha yashva badat, right? Ha'ir How did this destruction befall the Jewish people? And so to here, Moshe Rabbeinu says, how? This is beyond me. Eicha. This is tragedy. The Jewish argumentativeness, unfortunately, we see brings forth Eicha. We see that sinat chinam, the internal strife, the politics, the splitting up into different sects and groups and counter parties is what brought down the second temple and also in some way the first temple. And indeed, Moshe here says, Eicha, this is beyond me. What is the solution? Well, the solution to Jewish politics is Jewish politicians. Havu lachem anashim chachamim unevonim, bring forth men who are wise and smart, intelligent, v'yeduim leshivtechem, and who are well known to you as a nation, v'asimim barashichem, and I'll put them in charge of you, and we'll build some sort of hierarchy of, local government and federal government, national government, and each tribe will manage its own, and then I'll manage everyone on the top, and this pyramid of hierarchy will be able to manage everything. And indeed, that's what the Jewish people did. Now, if we actually look back into Jewish history, when did this come forth? When did this idea really start? The answer is Yitro, Moshe Rabbeinu's father-in-law, sees that Moshe Rabbeinu was trying to basically carry this whole nation on his shoulders alone, which tried to deal with all of the petty politics of the Jewish people. And he says, this is silly. Ata shma b'koli, says Yitro in Parashat Yitro in Sefer Shmot. Listen to me. V'yetzicha v'yeh Elohim mimach, heyeh ata la'am mul ha'Elohim, ve'eveta ata et ha'dvarim el ha'Elohim. You, Moshe Rabbeinu, says Yitro, should be the conduit to God. But everyone else, ואתה תחזה מכל העם, אנשי חיל, יראי אלוהים, אנשי אמת, שונאי בצע, ושמת עליהם, שרי אלפים, שרי מאות, שרי 50, ושרי עשרות. You need to build some sort of hierarchy of government and find the right people to do this. Now, what is beautiful is that Moshe Rabbeinu is telling the same story. I remember I once asked one of my teachers, Rav Menachem Liebtag, who is your favorite commentator on the Chumash? And he said Moshe Rabbeinu, right? Because Sefer Devarim is a commentary on Sefer Shmot. And in Sefer Shmot, we see the criteria that Yitro, the idealist, says who should be a Israeli, Jewish, in essence, politician. Who should we find? Anshe Chayil, men of character and strength. Yir'ei Elohim, who fear God. Anshe Emet, people who are true, who are just, who want the truth, search for the truth. Sonei Batza, who hate corruption, who hate money. They're not materialistic people at all. V'samta alehem, and then they will lead the Jewish people. So again, we're looking for good people, God-fearing people, true people, and non-materialistic people. That is the ideal leader. This reminds me a bit of the philosopher kings of Plato in the Republic, right? The ideal leader is someone who is someone who can inspire and encourage and is also a great role model. But here is where it gets really interesting, because we have the ideal in Sefer Shemot from the idealist, Yitro, who is coming in from the outside saying, this would be amazing if we could get this. And then we have the realism, where Moshe Rabbeinu says, this is what we actually did. This is what the situation looked like on the ground. Let's go back to the list in Sefer Devarim. Anashim chachamim, intelligent people, nevonim, wise people, v'yeduim l'shivtechem, and who are popular. Here we have, in a nutshell, the difference between the ideal politician and the practical politician. The ideal politician is someone who is a statesman, who is a leader, who can sway a nation, who can inspire and who can lead and educate, and Yirei Elohim, and who is religious and has character and ethics and morals, hates corruption, fights against it, searches for the truth. Practically, Sefer Devarim gives us the reality. You need people who know the system, people who can actually do the job, and people who are popular. Right? Popular, gonna be popular, right? We need an element of democracy. Yes, we ideally in Sefer Shmot would love the Greek philosopher, the philosopher king, who's able to tell us the moral and ethical and from on high, appointed by the leader. But Moshe Rabbeinu says, no, havu lachem anashim. You guys, elect from within you. That's the downside of democracy. If we're going to let the people elect, well, then the people will choose. As the saying goes, the people get what the people deserve. That is the difference. And beautifully, Chazal combine these two things together. They say, ideally, in a leader, you need all 7 criteria. You need, as we see from Sefer Shmot, we need the Yir'ei Elohim, Anshe Chayil, we need the Sonei Batzan, Anshe Emet. Right, the good characters, that's 4, but we also need Chachamim, Nevonim, and Yeduim L'Shiftechem. And then the Midrash says, well, if a politician doesn't have 7 criteria, then even one with 6 will do. And then the Midrash goes, and even if they don't have 6, then 5, and even if they don't have 5, then 4, and even if they don't have 4, then 3, and even if they don't have 3, then 2, and even if they don't have 2, then 1. I think the Midrash there beautifully is saying, when we come to our politics, we always search for the ideal leader. But sometimes we have to settle for someone who is not ideal. Indeed, the rabbi said this beautifully. "En ma'amidim parnas al hatzibur, ela im ken tluyat kupashat shratzim ma'achorav." You cannot appoint a leader of the community or of the nation unless they have skeletons in the closet. Everyone, you might have someone who is maybe Yidu'im L'Shivtechem, who's very popular and maybe very wise and intelligent and a great crafty politician, but he might be a bit corrupt sometimes, which is unfortunate. And sometimes you might have people who are Anshei Emet, and they're truthful people, and they're great, and they're maybe Yirei Elohim, but they're not very Chachamim, and they're not very Nevonim, and they don't really know necessarily when to make deals and when to break deals, and how to actually lead a nation. Sometimes they're too stuck in their own ideology. This is the balance. This is the balance. And I think the message that we see from both Shmot and Devarim is that we always have to strive for the best, aim for the best, hope for the best, guide the nation to be a place where they can achieve the best. And we have had amazing leaders who are Anshei Emet and Sonei Batza, and even in modern times I'm reminded of Menachem Begin, who was a very, astute, a very moral person. And yet sometimes there's other elements. Sometimes we get politicians who are more chachamim nevonim v'yiduim l'shivtechem, but not necessarily sonei bata. So that's it for this week. I think we're about to enter slowly. It's already warming up this period of politics, and I think it might be useful to keep these ideas in mind when reading the news. Shabbat shalom.